Hello, my name is Casper Hansen, and today we're going to tie one of the classics, I'd say, or at least my version of one of the classics. It's going to be a tube fly inspired by the classic Green Highlander. I love those classic flies, and I try to fish them a lot and make my versions of them, but of course in a lot of respect to the original pattern, but with modern materials and modern style of tying. It changes, of course, quite a bit, but I try to still make it look like some sort of original. And yeah, today it's the Green Highlander. I start out with the tubing. I prepare it. I'm going to tie it on a 10mm brass tube, and inside I have a 1.8mm plastic tube, and I'm just going to prepare it. I've just burned it a little bit here in the end, just warming it up to make a little color. And I just make sure it sits like I want it to, like this. And then I take a little bit of super glue, and I just gonna glue the tube on here, like this. Now it won't go anywhere. I cut off the plastic tubing here, maybe 5-6mm in front of the brass tube, and then I burn another color here in front. The reason why I move the plastic tubing in and out is so that it won't get too hot and that it melts nice and even, like this. I like to, when I fish in Norway, I like to fish flies like this, especially in the clear rivers, greenish colored rivers, the Gaula, some of the rivers on the western side of Norway is also really nice for flies like this. It's a light colored fly which have a really nice color combination to it, in my opinion. I start out with a yellow thread, and that's just because I'm gonna do the body first. Then I will finish with a black thread, like on the original. But because I'm gonna build up the body first with green dubbing and some gold flat braid, I use this yellow thread first, so you won't be able to see the thread through when the fly gets wet. At first, the back part of the body I do with some gold flat braid, tie it in underneath the fly here, go all the way back with the thread, make sure it sits nice and tight, and then I bring the thread back. Then I turn the gold flat braid. You can pull it quite hard because it's very, very strong, and make a nice even body, which have a really nice look to it. I finish it off here, maybe 3mm before the brass tubing ends, and I tie it in, fold it back and cut it off like this. Now we made the back part of the fly. Now we're gonna make the front part of the body. And I'm gonna make this with this dubbing material. It's the SSS dubbing. I think it's really nice product. Nice colors, works very well. I used the gaudy green and a little bit of this Green Highlander green as well. It has some nice fluorescence to it. I just mixed that in with the gaudy green. I take the two dubbings and I just pull them out and put them together again. Pull out, put together. And then I get this nicely colored greenish dubbing. I now build up the front part of the body with the dubbing, and I'm going to dub it a little bit backwards and then forwards again. I take it a little bit at a time, not too much, but I make like the part that's going to be under first here. Spin it quite hard. I go up on the breast tubing here. Now I have this to dub on top of, so it won't be any holes, any see-through, only the nice greenish dubbing. Oh, sorry. I try to build up a little bit of a ball, you can say, with the dubbing, which will help make this broad front of the fly that I like. Works very well when the fly is fishing. Pushes the water around the fly, which is really nice. Now the dubbing body is done, and I'm just gonna brush it out just a little bit. Not too much. This would work fine. Just like that. Then I'm gonna tie in an underwing and then an overwing, and in between that I will have a few hackles. And in the classic Green Highlander, the color combination in the feather wing is orange below and yellow in the middle and green on top. And I'm going to do the same with this wing. So a little bit of orange at first. And I take some nice polar bear that I'm just going to brush a little bit. Like this. And I take away the longest parts. This first wing isn't supposed to be very long. The taper and the long part will come later on. So this is only to support what's coming later. Here we are. A little bit of orange first. And I tie it in maybe 5 millimeters longer than the breast tubing. I spin my thread to make it a little bit stronger, and then I go around the polar bear. I tie it up all the way up against the dubbing ball that I made earlier. Before I tighten up the thread now, I'm just gonna make sure that it sits where I want it to, right on top like this. I only made 2 turns, and now I have it more or less where I want it. I make 2 more tight ones, and then I'm just gonna push with my thumbnail to make it a little bit wider, like this. I can go back 1, and then it sits like I want it to. Now I'm gonna take away the rest of this orange polar bear. And I'll put on a little bit of super glue to make sure it won't go anywhere, like that. Then I'm gonna tie in the first hackle, and I'm using a greenish colored soft neck hackle. The original Green Highlander color is a very very green, very deep green color, which can be quite difficult to find nowadays, but I think this one is a good one. I pick out a feather, not too long fibers. I'm going to put on a yellow hackle later, which will have a little bit longer fibers. And I'll fold back the first few fibers here. Then I'm going to cut off the tip of the feather here. Pull out a few fibers like this. And then I'm going to tie them in and fold them back so that the feather won't move anywhere when I turn it. Like that. I then take my knife and fold down the fibers on one side. When you do this, all the fibers will go to one side of the feather, which will make it very easy for you to put on the hackle in a nice way. Then I tie in one turn, two turns of this green soft hackle feather. Tie it in like this. Cut off the rest, pull it back a little bit, make sure it sits where we want it to, like that. Then I pick the second wing, underwing, which is also made from polar bear. It has a very nice shine to it, and I like it as a material for a lot of my salmon flies. I pick out a little bunch of these as well. Brush them carefully through. Again, I want a lightly dressed fly, so I'm careful not to have too much hair here. So I take out a bit of it before I'm going to tie it in. This wing I want to be a little bit longer than the orange one. So I'm just going to see if I can find a nice length to it, maybe a centimeter longer. I tie it in the same way, put it in on top, spin the thread, tighten the thread down, check out that it sits where I want it to, spread it out a little bit with a thumbnail, and tighten it up, just like that. Cut off the rest of the yellow and put on a little bit of super glue. I always use my other hand just to support on my thumb like this, so I can control where I put on the glue, because working with super glue can be a little bit tricky sometimes. if it gets stuck in some of the other materials, you're in trouble very fast because it tightens up and makes the materials extremely stiff. Now I made the underwing. Now I'm going to put on the second hackle, and because it's Green Highlander, you know, the second hackle has to be a yellow one. And I pick a nice yellow soft hackle like this. And I do this a little bit different than the first one. At first I'm going to take off all the fluffy fibers here. Then I know when I turn the hackle I'm going to do it this way around, clockwise, when we look from this side. But I don't want this hackle to be as much as the green one. And to make it more open, I take away the fibers on one side of the feather, like this. So now I only have fibers on one side, which will mean I have half of the fibers that I do if I was using the whole feather. This means that when I make 2 turns with this, I only get the same amount as I did with 1 turn of the green one. Again. Okay, now we tie in the hackle underneath, like this, and we're gonna make 2 turns. With the yellow hackle like that. So now we have our front hackle tied in. I'm going to change to the black thread. I have a few fibers here that are turning in the wrong direction, but I think I'll fix those later. Just going to pull them back here now. Like that. All right. So far, so good. Now we're gonna tie in the last part of the main wing with some Green Highlander green soft hair. I like to brush it first so I get a nice even hair pointing in the same directions. And then I'm gonna find the bunch that fits what I'm looking for. This looks like an okay bit. Again, I want a lightly dressed fly, so I have to make sure I don't put on too much materials, but of course when it is a Green Highlander, I want the green part of the fly to be very visible and the main color in the fly. To taper the wing a little bit, I pull out the middle of the hair. Like this. Then I can just brush it a little bit more to make sure everything is sitting nicely. Now I'm gonna put in the green wing here, and it's gonna be maybe 2 centimeters longer than the yellow one. I want this to be the longest part of my wing. Try to make sure that the wing sits the same way from both sides. I really want to build it up so the green don't go around the yellow but lies on top of the yellow. And I think it looks quite alright now. Then I take a little bit of angel hair. I take this gaudy green, and I put in just a few strands of that, not a lot. It's a mix of different colors, so I try to pick out maybe a light green one and a more darker green one. So just 2 strands. Put them on, fold it back, make sure it sits where you want it to. There we are. I then trim it in different lengths, so swims really nice with the rest of the wing. Now I put on a little bit of brown wing on top of everything. This I do to make the drop form even more obvious, but also to put in a kind of a roof of the fly. I like to finish off with a darker color on top. And also, when you look at the original Green Highlander, you have this brown bronze mallard as a part of the wing, so I like to have that as well. This is only a very, very little bunch of hair that's just gonna lay on top of everything else. Try to make sure that it doesn't fall down on any of the sides, but stays on top. It looks very nice now. Like this. Then I'm just gonna make sure it sits tight before I cut off the brown and the green. When you cut off a little bit of hair like this, it's a nice trick to just spin it a little bit in your fingers. Then it tightens up, and when you cut it, you can get it very tight. Then I just check that I have gotten everything, making sure that I don't cut the thread or anything else. So, to finish the fly off, like with the original Green Highlander, we put on a little bit of jungle cock. This is quite a small fly, so we just pick out 2 small feathers. Like that. I lay the feathers on top of each other and just make sure that when I pull off the fluffy part here, they are equal. Then I tie in the jungle cock on each side. When I pick my jungle cock, I always try to pick out the smaller feathers for my flies, so they won't get too dominant. I think the fly swims nicely with the small jungle cock. It's a little bit strange. I'm just gonna, sometimes when the feather is maybe bending a little bit strange, you can just form it with the edge of your nail. That's better. I pull back the rest of the stems, and then I build up a nice small head. Like this. Make a little knot. Then I tighten the thread. And I have the rest of the hackle stems here that I just have to pull out. They can be a little bit tricky to see, but there you are. You can always feel them. That. And that's more or less the finished modern version of the Green Highlander. I finish it off just by brushing the wing through, checking that everything is in place the way I want it to be. I think it looks quite all right. Just like that. A very nice summer fly for especially Norwegian rivers, clear rivers with that greenish color to it. I really like to fish this on sunny days as well. Fishing it on medium or low water levels. I think it works really good. And it's made with a lot of respect for the original pattern. And I still think that today, many years ago, many decades ago, it still works. So yeah, there's a reason why flies like the Green Highlander became classic flies. There's just something to them that, yeah, that works. Yes.